There are a lot of things that a business has to worry about in running a successful business. And one of those that we're going to talk about today is bookkeeping. And here to help me talk about bookkeeping, why you should probably have bookkeeping in your business, and why it matters to actually get someone who you can trust is Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. So bookkeeping is, I feel like it's right below taxes, right? Like people don't like doing it. They don't want to focus on it. They just want to go on and worry about their business. But a bookkeeping is a very big part. Yes.
Absolutely.
Because you got to know what money's coming in, what money's going out. And if you don't have your books set correctly, you're going to work yourself out of a business, essentially.
I would agree 100%. Right. So really, it should be your foundation in order to build your business, in my opinion. Right. Like all of us need to know our cash flow projections, or what our revenue, or if we're making a profit in the business that we're doing. And by managing your books and tracking your income and expense, it helps you determine where you're going to go and your funds to be able to grow your business.
Yeah. So what made you want to get into bookkeeping? Because I mean, I feel like that's kind of like one of those, like, you either are passionate about it or you are not at all kind of industries. And you've been doing this for quite some time.
I have.
I think was it 30 years?
I have. Correct? Yes. We don't have to. That dates me.
It was 15 years. 15 years. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I am. When I got out of high school, I went to school for accounting and got my degree in accounting. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. And I went to work at a tax firm, and I worked there for many years and learned a bunch about how back end bookkeeping can help facilitate a tax, people getting prepared for taxes. But it's just my passion. My business is a small company. I have some other staff accountants that also help me do data entry to provide the management reports. And I just found that it was a great way to help people understand their business and be able to build their own business, right? Like an entrepreneur is a great opportunity for people to pursue. And I just wanted people to be able to understand what they were doing and how to read their information.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you're wanting to kind of help serve the entrepreneur mindset, because I feel like, again, like a lot of people, they go and they clock in and they work for another company, and then it's not as relational,
Sure.
right? It's just kind of like, hey, hand in these forms and we'll go ahead and keep track of your books, and you hope that everything works out correctly. And unfortunately, I have heard of stories from other entrepreneurs like, yeah, this business burned me, this bookkeeping, or they did my taxes wrong, and so I had to find somebody else. So if they are an entrepreneur and they don't have a bookkeeper, or maybe they do, what are some things that they can possibly look out for to find like a trustworthy bookkeeper?
I think it would be just being able to communicate with who is managing your finances so that you understand what you're getting at the end of the day, right? It's not just you turn in your information and here's your result, but you don't understand your result, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of bookkeepers also don't want to do tax. I think the benefit of my bookkeeping knowledge is the fact that I've done the tax end as well, right? Like I still do taxes, but that's not my everyday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like tax season lasts from January to April, and being prepared for that is huge, right? So you want a bookkeeper that understands your finances, can maybe give you opportunities to help you save, but is willing to manage your receivables, payables, whatever that looks like, to the extent of what that company might need. And understanding what they're giving you at the end of the day. So when your tax preparer says, hey, how did you make this much money? Or why is this missing? Right? Like that you have someone that has been able to communicate that to you so you have good answers.
Yeah. And I love that you do that you also work on the taxes, not just bookkeeping, because you can actually, and you mentioned this, you can actually help build out that strategy on taxes. And I know you have a personal relationship with one of my financial advisors, which is huge too. And I feel like that is probably also another thing, that you're not just keeping books and like, hey, I can keep everything tidy. I feel like especially with like QuickBooks and AI, they can keep those kind of things tidy.
Sure.
But I mean, there is so much more depth when it comes to managing your finances, especially in a business aspect.
Very much so. And it's really, in doing this as long as I have, I've built the relationships with financial advisors, with other tax preparers, with other bookkeepers, just so we can, you glean knowledge from other people, right? You learn new things every day. Being able to focus on your bookkeeping or whatever so that you are prepared to go give that to a financial advisor or such, right? Like I can communicate with financial advisors to do payroll on, I'm not a retirement specialist, but I sure can tell you that I can run your payroll, work with your financial advisor and say, oh, do you need a 401k? Do you need, what kind of retirement suits you on your financial advisor has given you, and work with them to facilitate the best outcome for you financially and moving forward strategically.
Yeah. And that is huge. And I want to kind of touch on who you work with, because a lot of people are like, okay, they might be thinking like, okay, I need to get my books in line. Crap. Like, can I afford bookkeeping? Can I afford taxes? Man, this sounds like, I feel like every service you look out there, it's almost like an assumption that you got to spend like $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month for these services. And I know there's a wide gamut probably of like services.
Absolutely.
Just like in the video realm, like, okay, do you just need editing? Do you need me to film and edit? Do you need me to film, edit, and script? Do you need motion graph? Right? Like,
right.
It just kind of depends.
Absolutely. Right. Like, so we do everything from as much as back end accounting, which means, I accumulate your bank statements at the end of the month, record your expenses, record your revenue, and give you a management report at the end of the day that represents all of that information. However, we can also, if you're a smaller business, and you are growing and you need assistance with your accounts payable or your accounts receivable, and, you reference QuickBooks, great resource, right? AI is a great tool. However, it doesn't know what it doesn't know. And if you don't understand what you're doing, you don't understand what AI is doing in the background in your books to know if the results are even correct. Right? Like huge. And it can make recommendations, but maybe it's not always the best answer. Right. And so the great resources are there. We utilize them as well. But I definitely cannot count on those because it's AI and it doesn't know, right? Like it knows probably a lot more than I do, but maybe not in the financial world.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you kind of hit on that and to kind of like build on that. Like in my personal experience with video is like, hey, I was just curious, like how would you shoot a time lapse? And so I just like had it break it down and it swapped. So I'm going to get like kind of technical. So it's okay if you guys glaze over. My wife glazes over when I talk technical camera terms. So it's okay. But essentially what it did is it flopped. There's something called your f-stop. There's something called your shutter speed. And it said, yes, you need to crank down or crank up your f-stop because it's going to do motion blur. It's going to induce motion blur. Like, right? Like if you do this, there's motion blur. And they're like, oh yeah, so crank down your f-stop and then that's going to be, you're going to be good. And that's not what f-stop controls. And that was what AI fed to me.
Right.
But as the professional, I was like, that is 100% because I wanted to goof and just like have some fun with it. Like, okay, in my industry, what is it going to tell me? And because I knew the video realm, I knew that was incorrect. But somebody else who's like, oh, I want to do this. How can I do this? AI would have given them false information. They wouldn't have been able to get it. And they would be in this never ending spiral.
Absolutely.
Of I can't get this correct, but AI keeps telling me to do this. And they're getting the wrong results. Same thing with bookkeeping.
Same outcome. Exactly. Right. If you don't understand how to read your financials or, it's all encompassed. You really, even if you don't know that you can afford someone on a monthly basis to record it, it would really be wise for everyone to go out and, get a class or spend time with a bookkeeper or an advisor that you can understand what you're reading, right? Because if you don't know what you're reading, you don't know even if AI has messed it up, right? Yeah. In my company, the only thing I have to bill for is our time, right? Like because it's a service, right? Like I don't have a tangible item until the end of the month when I say, here's your management report.
Yeah.
Right. So truly it can range anywhere from $250 up to $4,000 a month, depending on how much time is spent in your books.
Yeah.
And, it depends on your industry too. By the grace of God, I've learned multiple industries over the years, right? Restaurants, accounting, financial consulting, gas and oil, right? Like I've worked with all of these type of entities. So I've learned the background on them, right? And by being in the tax world for a bit, I could suggest that, hey, if I'm not your tax preparer, I'm your bookkeeper, talk to your advisor or talk to your accountant about making an S corporation or something to that effect if you're profitable and want to be able to save on a tax strategy, right? Like, so for us to be able to provide you a management report that you can speak to whomever you're using for those services, we can at least point you in a direction to make better decisions.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you kind of touched on that, like, right, and giving that range. And obviously, I imagine the $4,000 range, that's not to scare you guys, but that's probably really in depth of what they're doing. And possibly like, okay, you haven't had a bookkeeper for like, I don't know, 3 years, and you are all over that. Like, I mean, I'm just envisioning like this massive rope that's just netted up, and you're like, all right, I got to find an end to start even,
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that. But
well, no, it's just we actually have finally got them all lined out, and it's a process. It's just the volume of business that they do and the requirements for their industry truly takes pretty much a full-time staff of mine to accomplish what they need done on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And so you mentioned staff. About how many people are there in your business to work on businesses' books and like taxes and all that?
So I have 5 other people on my staff.
Okay.
I myself am not a CPA. I do have a CPA in the firm, but I am not. But I have an administrative gal, and then I have 3 data entry, if you will, that help me input information through the month, and then it all comes across my desk for management reports that we then produce for our clients.
Okay, cool. So you've got a system built out, so in that way people are well taken care of. This isn't like just you, like
no, it takes a tribe, right?
Yeah.
Like we all have to do our part to facilitate getting all the work done, because we do sales tax and payroll and deposits and all of that kind of stuff. It's a every week activity.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. When would you advise somebody to get a bookkeeper? Like when they first start out in business, or kind of get going on business a little bit? Like, I know that might be kind of like a little bit of a loaded question.
Well, I think it's wise for everyone to seek the advice or knowledge of a professional to make sure your structure is set up correctly, right? Like, do you want to be a sole proprietor? Do you want to be an LLC? How do you want, you need an EIN number. Do you need to run payroll? So I think it's wise up front to get a consult, right?
Yeah.
To communicate, hey, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. And how can we make this happen, right? Like, what are the appropriate steps?
Yeah.
Right? Because we have done that. I have done that for multiple people where I'll train them on their QuickBooks, right? I'll even help them get their QuickBooks set up, right? Because they don't have the money to pay someone financially to get started.
Yeah.
So I just say, okay, let me help you get your stuff set up, right? Like, here's on the right track. And as you have questions, I'm happy to help you, right? But I think it's from day one that you need to get the advice on your setup, your organization, and what your goals are. And then, we come up with some ideas of how we can make that happen for you.
Yeah. And I think that's huge, especially like starting day one. Because I'll be honest, I did not start day one. Day one, sure. I had an idea of, okay, I'm going to help people and film. And so I just quickly Googled, hey, what do I need to do? And then I got a sole proprietorship, and I'll ask you a question here on that in a minute. But right. And then I was advised, oh, you should probably get an LLC. So I did an LLC, and just kind of like building it together, and thankfully like still been able to be in business. But man, there were like some months, some years I was flying by the seat of my pants just a little bit without having a structure. And now it's like, okay, now I'm starting to get structure and put things in place. And it's starting to feel like so much more relief of like just getting the experts involved. Because I was doing my taxes, like everything by myself, and it was like, okay, I'm just done. I'm done doing this. I got to be missing something, because the goals that I'm wanting to hit, I'm not hitting. And so taking a step back and like, why am I not hitting? Even though I'm busy
all the time. Yeah.
I'm still scraping by my teeth essentially. But I kind of want to touch on the sole proprietorship, because a lot of like, there is that option out there. And so it's like, cool, I'll get a sole proprietorship. It's really easy setup. That's what drew me in. But then I was like, someone had advised get an LLC. When should someone consider doing an LLC as opposed to sole proprietorship? Because in my mind, a sole proprietorship is like, yes, if something were to happen, like even in the video realm, like people will sue, hey, I don't like the way this video looks. And it's like, well, this is an art form. This is, unless if you completely botched the video, it's like, no, we talked, we set up the strategy, you looked at the demos, it's close to the demo. Like you wanted it to look like this, I made it look like that, and you're still saying it's not correct. It hasn't happened to me, but it has happened to a couple people I've networked with. Yeah. And they got sued. And that's why they said, yeah, make sure you have an LLC, because if they sue you, they can come after your house. I was like, oh, crud.
Well, and the only difference between an LLC and a sole proprietor is a limited liability company actually gives you like an umbrella that you can utilize. Unfortunately, in this day and age, if you're the owner of your LLC, I am not an attorney, so I don't know, but I don't think that it could actually stop there. It is the best, in my opinion, for someone like yourself, right? Because I am learning what you are doing, right? LLCs are a great option because you can change a taxing authority. What you have to understand is a sole proprietor and an LLC is not a taxing authority. Those are entity types.
Okay.
Right? So you would get with your tax professional and they can help you explain all of that as well. I just know because I've done this for a while, the differences, right? But I think LLCs are a great way, a tax strategy. And if you set one up as an LLC to start with, you can always change its taxing authority to save you taxes at the end of the day, right? But that would be a conversation for your tax specialist to have with you. But either or, that's why you would talk to someone in the beginning for your setup.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And I think that's a good reminder. Just talk to somebody, because again, like a lot of people, and I keep hearing things like, "Oh yeah, I'm a sole proprietorship, like it's normal," and I'm sitting here like, you should really switch that to an LLC just for the heck. I mean, from what I understand, there is no downside to go from a sole proprietor to an LLC, but there's only benefit, and there's actually a massive draw for a sole proprietor. But with like a sole proprietor, it's again like very simplistic.
Well, and by doing just a sole proprietor, that usually files on your Schedule C on a personal tax return, where you're then responsible for your self-employment tax as well as your income tax. So those are your different strategies, for an LLC to be able to be taxed as a corporation to save you on the financial end, right? Where I come in is having all of that information prepared as a bookkeeper. So number one, you can go build your business and make great decisions, right? How you're going to process what your cash flow is and such to do that. And when tax season rolls around, I just say, here's your financial statement. This is what your tax preparer will need to get your stuff done. If they have any questions, please have them reach out to me, right? Happy to answer any questions for your entity.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, so you're in Colorado, you're based in Northern Colorado.
Yes.
I would imagine, maybe I'm wrong on this, bookkeeping, can you do that nationwide? So, because I mean, someone could be watching this, like, right? They could be in Montana, Idaho, Texas, and they're like, you know what? I want to work with Jenny. She sounds like she knows her stuff, and I need to reach out to her. Would they be able to?
Absolutely. The good thing about bookkeeping, and I utilize QuickBooks for a lot. I am learning NetSuite as well. I use multiple platforms for accounting, right? The advantages of today is with internet and such, you can work from anywhere for anyone, right? Like, so QuickBooks, as an example, has the ability for me to run your QuickBooks. You can get in your QuickBooks on a daily basis. You can do your invoicing. I can manage your receivables, or I can get on and pay your bills, or I can get on and pay your staff, right? I can make sure your payroll taxes are filed, your reporting has been completed, your sales tax is done, right? And we can be in two total different locations and be looking at the same information. So that's a huge benefit of the internet and the abilities that we've grown to come accustomed to.
Yeah. And you mentioned taxes. I imagine taxes you can't do taxes, because that's like, right, like you got federal, which is
Nope.
country, but you
Nope,
also
you
have
can do
state.
federal and state. I have multiple clients in multiple states that we do their payroll for New York, for Texas, for wherever they are.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like we can apply for payrolls in any state for tax withholding and unemployment if required.
Okay.
Right? And that is the benefit of online as well, is we can do all of that for any state while I sit in Colorado.
Awesome. That is so cool. And so if someone is wanting to reach out to you, start that conversation and say, hey, I need help with bookkeeping, I haven't been doing good, or hey, I've been burned too many times by these organizations that I keep finding on Google.
Yeah.
How can they get in contact with you?
So you can reach my office number. It is 970-652-4299, or you can email me directly at jenny@jlullc.com, and it's JENNY@jlullc.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions or review any information, or, answer any questions you might have. Right. That is my office number, and I don't answer that phone, but they can set up a meeting via Zoom, telephone call, whatever is the best way for them to communicate with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And as always, guys, feel free to leave a comment if you found this helpful, valuable. If you need any more information, you can always reach out to Jenny. We appreciate you guys being here. Again, this podcast is done for free. Jenny gave up her time. I'm giving up my time because we really want to connect people with good, trustworthy businesses. So then that way you're not sitting there alone and just trying to build that connection. So we thank you guys for being here today, and we will see you guys on the next one. Jenny, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.